I'm Tessa Miller, 30 years old, a social worker in Boise, Idaho. At my parents' 30th anniversary party, my sister's smile hid a secret that tore us apart. The banquet hall was packed, friends, neighbors, local bigwigs sipping wine, toasting mom and dad. I stood by the gift table forcing a grin as my sister glided in her boyfriend trailing behind, both dressed like they owned the place. I'd poured $30,000 of my savings into her so-called charity, believing it helped people. But that night everything changed. My parents clinked glasses, their faces glowing with pride for her, not me. My sister leaned close, her voice sharp. "Tessa, it's time you moved out. We need your room for our future." Her boyfriend smirked, nodding like it was settled. My heart sank a cold weight in my chest. I started to protest, listing every dollar I'd given, but Dad cut me off. "Enough, Tessa. They're building something big. You're not." My sister added, "You're just in the way." The room spun, their words slicing through me. I clenched my fists, my heart pounding, and made a choice that would unravel their perfect little world. Where are you watching this? Drop your city in the comments. I want to know how far this story reaches. My sister's words cut like a knife. "Tessa, you're holding us back," she said, her voice sharp as we stood in the hallway, the party's laughter fading behind us. Her boyfriend leaned against the wall, scrolling his phone, a smug grin plastered on his face like he knew something I didn't. I'd just been told to leave my own home, the place I'd poured my heart into so they could build their future. My hands shook, but I kept my voice steady. "Elise, I gave up everything for your charity. Late nights, weekends, my own dreams." She laughed, cold and cutting. "Dreams? You mean your little do-gooder projects? They don't pay the bills, Tessa?" I turned to Mom, desperate for a lifeline. She was adjusting her earrings, her eyes fixed on the floor. "Mom, I've been funding this family's pride and joy, her charity. Doesn't that matter?" She sighed, her voice soft but unyielding. "Tessa, your sister's making a real difference. You need to step aside." Dad's voice boomed from the doorway. "She's right. They've got big plans, real plans. You're just here." My chest tightened, the air thick with their betrayal. I wasn't just here. I'd skipped promotions, canceled trips, poured every spare dollar into their precious charity, thinking it was saving lives in Boise. I'd organized fundraisers, written grants, stayed up until dawn balancing their books, while my sister soaked up the applause. Her boyfriend glanced up, his eyes narrowing. "Let's be real, Tessa. You're not cut out for the big leagues." I wanted to scream, but I swallowed it down. Something about him felt wrong. His hushed calls during the party, always stepping outside, his voice low and urgent. Last week, I'd found a crumpled receipt in the kitchen trash, $10,000 for consulting fees from the charity's account, signed by him, wired to some LLC I'd never heard of. Charities don't pay cash for vague consulting. Then there was the time I overheard him on the phone, muttering about moving the funds before he saw me, and hung up fast. I stormed to my room, their words burning in my ears. I pulled out a folder of the charity's paperwork, donations. I'd secured budgets, I'd balanced thank you letters I'd drafted. But one page stopped me cold, a bank statement with withdrawals I hadn't approved, $15,000 wired to an account with no name, just a number. My sister had always been the face of the charity, dazzling donors with her charm, while I did the grunt work. Now I saw it. Her perfect smile was a mask. I grabbed my phone, scrolling to my friend's number. She was a reporter, someone who could dig where I couldn't. My hands shook, not from hurt anymore, but from a fire I hadn't felt before. They thought I'd stay quiet, roll over like always, but I was done being their doormat. I was going to unravel their scam no matter what it took. That night, alone in my room, I couldn't shake the image of my sister's smug laugh, her boyfriend's sly grin. The bank statement I'd found, $15,000 wired to some nameless account, kept me up, my mind racing. I had to know more. I grabbed my sister's laptop from the living room, left open after she'd rushed out for another urgent call. Her password was the same lazy one she'd used for years. I clicked into her email, my heart pounding as I scanned the inbox. One subject line stopped me: cold transfer confirmation, offshore account. It was from her boyfriend, sent to a contact labeled V. The email detailed a wire of $20,000 from the charity's funds to a bank in the Caymans with a note, "Keep it quiet. More to come." My stomach churned. This wasn't sloppy bookkeeping. This was deliberate. I called my friend, a reporter who'd exposed shady nonprofits before. "Zoe, I need your help," I said, my voice low, glancing at the door. I sent her screenshots of the email, the bank statement, everything. She called back an hour later, her tone grim. "Tessa, this is bad. That account links to a shell company tied to a money laundering ring. Your sister's boyfriend is in deep with some dangerous people." I froze, my breath catching. Our charity, my charity, was a front. Every dollar I'd poured in, every late night I'd spent was propping up their scam. I drove to my parents' house the next morning, the email printed and tucked in my bag. They were in the kitchen sipping coffee, planning the next big charity gala. "Mom, Dad, we need to talk," I said, sliding the papers across the table. "Elisa's charity is a lie. Her boyfriend's moving money to criminals." Dad's face hardened. "Tessa, stop this nonsense. You're just stirring trouble." Mom clutched her mug, her eyes pleading. "Your sister's doing good work. Don't ruin it with your theories." I pushed back, my voice shaking. "This isn't a theory. It's proof. $20,000 gone, and that's just one transfer." Dad slammed his hand on the table. "Enough. You're jealous of her success. Let it go." Their words stung, but I wasn't surprised. They'd always chosen her no matter what. I stood up, my hands steady now. "Fine. You won't listen. But I'm not letting this slide." I left their dismissal burning in my chest. Back at my apartment, I dug deeper, pulling every charity record I could access. Another email popped up, an older one from her boyfriend to V, mentioning a cut for keeping the donors happy. I cross-checked the charity's donor list. Half the names didn't exist. No addresses, no contact info, just ghosts funneling cash. My friend texted me, "Got a lead on the shell company. Meet me tomorrow." I stared at the screen, my jaw tight. They thought I was nothing, just a jealous sister. But I was about to blow their world apart. The next evening, I returned to the banquet hall, my heart pounding, but my resolve iron. My friend had sent me a compiled video, every damning email, every shady transaction, her boyfriend's texts to his business partner about laundering money through the charity. I'd spent all night syncing it to a flash drive, my hands steady as I planned my move. The party was in full swing, guests, laughing, glasses clinking, my sister holding court in a glittering dress. I slipped into the AV booth unnoticed and plugged the drive into the sound system. My finger hovered over the play button, my pulse racing. This was it. They dismissed me, mocked me, but they were about to see who I really was. The screen lit up, and the room fell silent. My sister's email flashed first, $20,000 to the Caymans, keep it quiet. Then her boyfriend's text, "Donors won't notice." "We're clear." Gasps rippled through the crowd. A donor in a suit stood up, his face red. "What the hell is this?" My sister froze, her glass slipping from her hand, shattering on the floor. Her boyfriend lunged for the booth, but I stepped forward, my voice cutting through the chaos. "You thought I'd stay quiet? Your lies end here, Elise," she screamed. "This is fake. Tessa's lying." But the video kept rolling. Bank records, fake. Donor names, proof the charity was a front for criminals. Guests whispered, some heading for the exits. A local councilwoman, a major donor, glared at my sister. "You used our money for this." My parents stood by the stage, Mom clutching Dad's arm, their faces pale. "Tessa, stop this," Dad shouted, but I didn't flinch. "You told me to let it go. Look where that got you." Her boyfriend tried to bolt, shoving through the crowd, but two cops pushed through the doors, badges flashing. "Ryan, you're under arrest," one said, cuffing him as he stammered. "It's not what it looks like." My sister sank to her knees, sobbing, begging the guests to believe her. But they turned away, their trust shattered. I stood tall, the weight of years lifting off my shoulders. Every late night, every dollar I'd given, every dream I'd buried for their charity, it was over. I walked past my sister, her mascara streaking, and didn't look back. Mom reached for me, her voice trembling. Tessa, please, we didn't know. I shook my head. You chose her lies over me. Deal with it. The cops led her boyfriend out the crowd, parting like a sea. I stepped into the cool Boise night, my breath steady, my heart free. They thought they could bury me, but I just burned their world to the ground. The fallout was brutal. By morning, the charity's website was offline. Its name splashed across local news as a fraud. My sister faced a lawsuit from donors, her face pale on the courthouse steps, no longer the golden child of Boise. The community turned its back. Neighbors, who once fawned over her, now crossed the street to avoid her. Her boyfriend was locked up, charged with money, laundering his flashy suits, swapped for an orange jumpsuit. The banquet hall's guest list, once a badge of pride for my parents, became a list of people who'd never speak to them again. I watched it unfold from my apartment, a small one-bedroom I'd rented across town, my few boxes still unpacked. 2 days later, my phone buzzed. It was Mom, her voice shaky. Tessa, we're in trouble. The donors are suing us to $50,000 we don't have. Please come home. I gripped the phone, my jaw tight. You chose her lies over me, Mom. Live with it. She sobbed, but I hung up. Dad called next, his tone softer than I'd ever heard. We messed up, Tessa. We need you. I stared out my window, the Boise skyline glowing faintly. You needed me when I was paying your bills, Dad. Not now. I ended the call, my heart heavy but firm. I'd given them everything, years of my life, my savings, my trust. They'd thrown it away. I packed my things that week and moved to Raleigh, North Carolina. A friend from my nonprofit days had a lead on a job there, running a new community outreach program. I took it, pouring my energy into building something real, a charity that actually helped people. My first project raised $20,000 for local shelters. Every cent accounted for every donor, thanked by me personally. I rented a cozy loft downtown, hung fairy lights on the balcony, and started running again, the morning air crisp against my skin. My friend visited one evening, her laugh filling the space as we cooked dinner. You're killing it, Tessa, she said, raising a glass. I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in years. Back in Boise, my family was crumbling. My sister's lawsuit dragged on her name, toxic in every community circle. She'd moved into a cramped rental with my parents, their old house sold to cover legal fees. Dad took a part-time job driving a delivery van, his pride swallowed with every shift. Mom worked odd hours at a diner, her hands rough from washing dishes. They'd text me sometimes short messages begging for help, but I didn't reply. My sister sent one email a week apology claiming she didn't know the full extent of her boyfriend's scam. I deleted it without responding. They'd made their choice, and I'd made mine. I wasn't their safety net anymore. Walking away wasn't easy, but it was right. I'd spent years carrying them only to be pushed aside. Now I was free, and they were paying the price for their betrayal. 6 months later, I sat on my balcony in Raleigh, North Carolina, the city's lights twinkling below as I sipped coffee. My new life felt like a dream I'd forgotten I could have. I'd landed a role, leading a community outreach program, and my charity was thriving. $30,000 raised in 3 months, every penny going to local families, every donor meeting my eyes with trust. My loft was small, but mine filled with books I finally had time to read, and plants I tended each morning. My friend stopped by most weekends, her laughter echoing as we planned our next project over wine. Tessa, you're unstoppable, she said one night, clinking her glass against mine. I smiled, a quiet resilience settling in my chest. For the first time, I wasn't living for anyone else. Back in Boise, my family was a shadow of what they'd been. My sister's lawsuit had drained them her name, a whispered warning in community circles. She worked odd jobs now, her charm useless against the town's cold shoulder. My parents lived in a one-bedroom rental, their pride buried under bills they couldn't pay. Dad drove long hours for a delivery service, his back hunched from the weight of it all. Mom cleaned houses, her hands, calloused her voice quiet when she left voicemails I didn't return. They'd sent letters, apologies, please promises to change, but I left them unopened on my desk. I'd carried them for years only to be cast aside. Their regret couldn't undo that. I thought back to that night at the party, the moment I'd stopped being invisible. Walking away wasn't just about leaving Boise, it was about choosing myself. Family isn't just blood. It's the people who see you who lift you up, not the ones who push you down to prop themselves up. I learned that the hard way, but it made me stronger. You can't let anyone, family, friends, anyone, dim your worth. Stand up, set boundaries even when it hurts. That's what keeps you whole. Thank you for following my story, for sticking with me through the betrayal and the fight. It's not easy to walk away from the people you love, but sometimes it's the only way to save yourself. Have you ever had to stand up to your family to draw that line? Share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear it. And if this hit home, hit that subscribe button. Let's keep talking about what it means to fight for ourselves.